Let's talk to the man now who leads the team putting together this data, Richard Curtin. Richard, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Is that what I'm seeing here? Is this a Delta effect?
It is, and but thanks for having me back. And I think we should look at this set of data as something that consumers delivered on Friday the 19th. The sentiment index in early August recorded the third largest monthly decline in nearly a half century. It was down 13.5% from last month. And it pushed the index to below where it was in April 2020, which was our low for that recession. And, by comparison, there's the other two larger declines were first in April 2020 when the shutdown took effect. That was 19%. And then during the depths of the Great Recession, we recorded an 18% decline. Now, these losses covered all income, education, and regions of the country, including all age groups, and covered all aspects of consumers'
So, Richard,
views.
if sentiment is waning, what is that going to mean for their tolerance to price increases in the inflation side of the equation?
Well, Guy mentioned that we had a little change in the expectations of year ahead and 5-year inflation. And actually, they've been really unchanged for since May. They've been at these high levels. And, and I think, that evidence doesn't bear on the case of whether the transient nature is there or not. But consumers in August, as they did in the several months prior to that, have complained about high prices for homes, vehicles, large household durables, and this has caused them to adopt negative attitudes towards spending. Now, I think, this will help curb some inflation in product pricing because they're not going to buy, and they've already turned down home sales and vehicle sales. Of course, vehicle sales had other problems. So I think it will help, but I think it's too early to tell.
Can I ask you a question about how this breaks politically? If I look at this data through a political lens, are red consumers, blue consumers looking at the world differently as a result of, A, what is happening kind of in Washington, D.C., and what is happening in their world right now as we see maybe some vaccinated, some unvaccinated? I'm just kind of wondering how we can look at this data differently to get an idea of what kind of impact we're going to have.
It is true that Republicans are more negative than Democrats on the outlook for the year ahead. But we have to understand that if we look at the change from last month to this month, each of those groups, including independents, fell by similar proportions. So this has been a widespread decline. And, it is not simply due to reason, but also emotion played a big role in this. And, the extraordinary surge in negative assessments was due to their response to the COVID and their dashed hopes that the pandemic would end soon. So I think this emotional response is likely to fade as we gain control of the Delta variant in the next several months.
Well, I'm curious as to how this translates through to income prospects. The gauge of expected personal finance fell to a 7-year low. Where does that stem from?
When we look at the details, lower income folks have expressed larger gains that they expect during the year ahead, and upper income households expect lower gains than they did in the year ahead. And I think this is due to changing wages for low income workers, but also to what Biden has proposed. But I think the problem with those income gains, which have been more generous on the low end, is that when we look at of the reasons people give for their finances, eroding living standards were more likely to be voiced by those 65 plus, those in the bottom third of the income distribution, and those with the least skills or least education in the labor force. So this is a difficult time.